Hello, welcome to Martha's Fragrance Corner. My name is Martha, and if you're new, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Every month, I do talk about the books I've read because I love to read. And the past 2 months, though, I haven't read as much as I'd like to, but that's okay. I still read 4 books in April, and I wanted to talk about what I read. I read a sci-fi, I read a courtroom drama, I read a cozy mystery, and and then I read just like a his can we call it, let's talk about that, can we call it historical fiction when it happened in my lifetime? But yeah, it's a book, just like literary fiction, just strong character development book. So yeah, I think I hit several genres, one of each. So if you're interested in hearing what I read, then stick around. Okay, so I'm gonna kick it off. I'm gonna save the first book I read for last because it is a part of a series, and if you haven't read the first book, then less people will be interested, I think. But let's start off with Witness 8. This is, I'm not even sure what number in this series, but even though this is a series, you can jump right in. So this isn't one where you have to know what happened in the previous books. You can jump right in, and I've done that. This is Witness 8 by Steve Cavanagh. I've only read another of the Eddie Flynn, which is the series, the Eddie Flynn series. I'm not even sure how many are out there. There's quite a number. But I read a 13. It's called 13, and that was one where I just jumped right in. It wasn't like I started from book 1 and kept going. I read 13 a couple years ago. Love that one. So then I heard Steve Cavanagh, who's the author, was coming out with another Eddie Flynn book. And so I'm like, let me read this one because this one has sounded intriguing to me. So it's called Witness 8. And it's the story of Ruby. Ruby is a maid in this upper class neighborhood in New York. And there's something off about her, and she witnesses a murder. She witnesses a murder of actually one of her clients because she's a maid in this, like I said, this kind of these brownstones, this upper class neighborhood, and she witnesses a murder of one of her clients, that she said she liked out of all the people she worked with. But she doesn't call the police. She does something very unusual, actually, and she decides she's going to use this murder to change her life because she also has a chip on her shoulder. She came from wealth. She was born into this kind of society, this neighborhood, this group of upper class people. That's how she was born into and raised, and then her father lost it all. They lost everything. He left, and so now that's how she's a maid, right? So she is kind of invisible because she's a maid, right? She's the help, but she hears things, she sees things like this murder, and she is going to use this to change her life, really, to change her life. She lives with her mother. She takes care of her mother, and she wants to make sure that her mother's well taken care of and that she can also, I think, start over. That's what she's going through in her mind. In the meantime, because she has not come forward or anything, there is an innocent man on trial, and it's someone she works for, right? She cleans, I think, several houses in this neighborhood. And she's a nanny so she doesn't clean for them. She's a nanny for them and their young son. And so she knows what this family is going through, being wrongly accused, but she's not helping. And so the whole time I'm thinking, why? What is she trying to get at? That really sucks. She's horrible. That's a horrible thing to do. Anyway, the family, I think he's a doctor, he hires Eddie Flynn, and Eddie Flynn has, I did enjoy the people he works with and kind of his crew, basically, that he works with. And Eddie Flynn is thinking there's something suspicious. So going on, there's something that's not making sense. He does believe his client that he's innocent, and so, but they know nothing about Ruby. Like, no one knows that she witnessed anything, and again, she's the help, so she's kind of behind the scenes. No one really thinks much about it, but things start happening. There's another murder that goes on, and it was a good read. This is the kind of book that I do like. It wasn't really courtroom as it was more of the team trying to piece together what is happening or what has happened. And then Eddie Flynn, if in the past, if you have read these books, I think there's maybe a little more courtroom that goes on. In this case, he lets one of his associates, Kate, kind of handle the courtroom piece of it, but had an interesting twist at the end. So that's all I'm going to say. I really like this book. It's making me want to go back and read more of the Eddie Flynn books because I've read, like I said, 13, which I loved. I think that was a 5-star for me. And Witness 8, I gave this like a 4.5 stars. So Witness 8, I really liked. There's more members of his team than what I remember from 13. So I kind of do want to go back and see how they all kind of came together because there are some characters in there that I really like. But yeah, this is just a great read if you like this kind of book that has a twist, and I enjoyed it a lot. So I think at some point do want to go back and read maybe some of the more popular Eddie Flynn books because I do like his character. He is a con artist, so he was a con artist who's turned to a lawyer. So he also has a very interesting past, and I think his brain works that way. Like, there's a con in here, something's off, which makes him a really great lawyer. So that was Witness 8 by Steve Cavanagh. Okay, book 2, I guess, out of the 4 that I read was The Maid's Secret. So this is book 3. So I guess I did read a few of these kind of series, but this is book 3 of the Molly the Maid series from Nita Prose. And I didn't even know this book was coming out, but I was watching Chris's book reviews, Chris from Wax, Whimsy, and Books. I always have to check if I said that right. But she does a monthly book review of the book she's read as well. And she read, I think, the second book in the series, which I really liked. And then she mentioned the third one was coming out. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. So let me read it because I do like this character of Molly. This is a cozy mystery. So, and I'm not super big on cozy mysteries, but I just really like the characters in this series. I will say this is my least favorite of the 3. And the reason being is it was almost 50-50, like 50% Molly and the mystery around her, or the mystery that happens to her, or the mystery they have to solve, I guess. And then 50% of her Graham's childhood and coming of age and youth. And so I wasn't expecting that. So the story starts with Molly has this egg that she's had, and her Graham used to call it their savings, their Fabergé, right? Is that what you say? Fabergé egg. And so Molly is planning her wedding, and there is like a reality show coming. I forget what the name of the reality show, but it's basically those where you bring like your antiques or your things that you have that you think may be worth a lot of money, art or whatever, and they'll on TV will tell you like if this is worth anything, right? If it's worth any value or not. When she brings the Fabergé, they look into it and they're like, no, this is like a real Fabergé egg. Like this is worth tons and tons of money. This will change Molly's life forever. This will, this is the kind of thing, it's like winning the lottery, right? It's a windfall for her. She can have everything she wants if she auctions it off and sells the egg. Well, during the auction, the egg gets stolen. So that's the mystery kind of in this book, The Maid's Secret. But it flips back and forth in time with Molly getting a journal that her Graham had written about. It was like a diary about her upbringing, how the egg came to be, all of those things. And so I liked hearing about Graham, and Graham is her grandma who passed away in book one, but she's always been kind of in the books, either in Molly's thoughts, like she can hear Graham and what would Graham say, but this is her journal really, and kind of talking about the egg, and it leaves clues in there that help the team solve who stole the Fabergé. So it does go back and forth. So I liked it, but at the same time, I don't know if I was in the mood for it. Maybe that's why I'm being a little harder on this book. I wasn't expecting so much of Graham and less of Molly and her friends. And maybe I'm just kind of over it. So I don't think I'm going to read any more from the series. I feel like Molly can retire, and maybe she will. I'm not sure if Nita Prose is planning on making any more. But yeah, I feel like I'm kind of over Molly at this point, but I liked it enough. I think I gave this one, I'm not even sure, like 3.5 stars maybe, because I do, like I said, I do like the characters. There's a time and place for this book. I just may not have been the right time for me, and I was expecting a little bit more. So, because sometimes I think even with like the detective, there's a detective that's been in all of these books as a character, and I felt like, can you get any dumber? Like, and I know it's a cozy mystery and you're supposed to kind of laugh at some of this, but I don't know. It just seemed extra corny to me than what I remember. So for me, this was not, yeah, it was okay. So that's The Maid's Secret from Nita Prose. Then the last book I read, but the third that I'm talking about, is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I'm not sure how to say the last name. Blau. This is a coming of age story set in the 1970s. And Mary Jane is, I think she's about 14 years old in this. And this is, if you like literary fiction, if you like just a book of like strong character development, or just really a book where you would say not much happens. So it's not a typical book that I read often. But if I find the right book and I love the characters, it's usually something that I really like. So this is truly a coming of age story in the summer of, I think it's like 1972. And I was alive during this time. I was alive during the 70s. And so I think if you're familiar with that time, it might be something that you'd enjoy reading as well. Or maybe you enjoy it more if you were around during that time. But Mary Jane, she's hired by, in the neighborhood. So she's hired by some neighbors, I think like around the corner from her house. And they have a 5-year-old daughter named Izzy. And Mary Jane comes from a very conservative household. She's the only child. She helps her mom cook and clean, and they say grace before meals, and it's like, God bless the president and all of this, and just very like straight and narrow, very conservative family. The family that she goes to work for, they're Jewish. The doctor is, he's a psychiatrist, I think, I think it's psychiatrist. So that's what he's a doctor of. And they have it's like a completely different household from what she's used to. They're more like free. Like, I mean, the mom doesn't even cook. They eat out a lot. The house is kind of a mess. They talk about things in front of Izzy that, that Mary Jane is like, I can't believe they said the word penis or something in front of their 5-year-old, but they're very open, very transparent. They have like family therapy sessions, and it's just a completely different world from what Mary Jane is used to or what she's grown up in. And that summer, while she's working for them, the dad, the doctor, not her dad, but the family that she's, Dr. Cohen, that she's working for, he is helping a rock star with his addiction problem. So there's this rock star, and his wife, who used to be an actress. I think she still acts, but so it's this famous couple, right? Rock star and actress. And they come to stay with the Coens as well during the summer because he's like cleared out all his schedule, and he's going to focus and give like one-to-one therapy and attention to help this rock star get over his addiction. And so they're also staying at the house as guests. So you can imagine like Mary Jane at first is like in awe of like, oh my gosh, I grew up watching the TV show where the wife Sheba is on or was on with her brothers, and she knows Jimmy, the rock star. She knows him and his music, and it was just I liked this book so much. I really did. Even though not a lot happens. I think what happens though is that trajectory of seeing Mary Jane, how she evolves and changes in a summer, and how her eyes are opened up to this different world, and all the things, and how she also discovers who I think she wants to be. So she grows up a lot, but in a good way. It's not like traumatic things happen to her. It's more of her eyes and her world just opens up to like, you don't have to live this particular way. And there's nothing wrong with Jewish people, right? Because, it's just, very different families, like I said. And it's experiencing, that things aren't so black and white as maybe her parents seem to look at the world and things. In her household, she's a little afraid of her dad. In this household, she sees that Izzy, the 5-year-old that she watches, like can say anything, and they're such a loving family. And Mary Jane didn't grow up with that kind of that love in the I guess the public display of love, or not even public display of love, but just the affection. I guess that's what I'm getting at. The affection, of hugging and kissing, on the forehead and things like that. So anyway, really enjoyed this book a lot. Even though it might be slow moving, I highly, highly recommend, I didn't find it to be slow. I highly, highly recommend listening to it because there's music, there's some singing. I mean, it's just a happy family. And so I did like the audio. I think the narrator did a fantastic job. So if you like these kinds of character books or coming of age in Baltimore, takes place like just in the outskirts of Baltimore. I really enjoyed it. So I'm glad I read it. This had been on my TBR for at least 2 years. And I was kind of looking at my list, and I'm like, I think I was looking through my library holds or something, and I'm like, when am I going to get around to reading Mary Jane? It's been sitting on here for a long time. So glad I read it. It was just great. It was just a good book. It was just a good book. So even though the characters are imperfect, I just feel like there was a lot of good life lessons, and it was just fun to see the 70s through Mary Jane's eyes. And a special little shout out to Izzy, the 5-year-old. She's just cute. Really, really cute. I loved Izzy. So that was Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I think I'm saying the last name correctly. Okay, last book that I read, Onyx Storm. So this is book 3 of the Empyrean series, which that may mean nothing to you, but you've probably heard of Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So Fourth Wing just like blew up, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago. And so this is book 3. It came out earlier this year in January. And I won't say too much on this one. I'm going to keep this short because if you haven't read the second book, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but Violet and Xaden are back and they're friends. It had been maybe about a year since I read, what was the second one called? Fourth Wing. It's not coming to me. I'll think about it, whatever book 2 is. Oh gosh, it's right there on the tip of my tongue. But, it'd been a while since I'd read the second book. And so I was like, I remembered some of the characters, but there are a lot of characters. So there's a lot of names in this book that I was so glad that I found a website called Empyrean Writers. And they have all the books, all the characters and who they are, who they're associated with, what their powers are, what happened in book 1, book 2, book 3. They even have a book club, like a book club. They call it a book club, where you can go chapter by chapter and they'll summarize what happened and give their thoughts like you would in a book club of, the thoughts on what happened in that chapter and like what it could mean. So that was super helpful. I almost needed that as a kind of read along companion with this book. I listened to this on audio, Onyx Storm, and there was a lot happening. Like even in the beginning, because I hadn't read the second book, it had been a while and I'd forgotten about it. I'm like, wait, what's going on? I remembered how it ended, but it just seems like all of a sudden there's dragons and, the whole thing. And listening to it was hard for me to really go like, what just happened? So sometimes I'd have to think about it or go to that website and like reread the summary of what just happened in that chapter. All that being said, I kind of felt like this was a filler book. I felt like I still enjoyed it, but I felt like they were on this quest and like that's what the whole book was about. The ending is a WTF. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So now I'm like, well, now I got to read book 4 because what just happened. So I'm still invested in this series. I did like it, but I didn't like it as much as book 1 and book 2. But, it carries the story on. And now we have this ending where I'm like, well, now I got to wait, hopefully not 2 years for book 4, but we shall see. So anyway, that was Onyx Storm. I gave this one, I think 3.75 stars. I gave Witness 8. I didn't say that. I think I gave this like a 4.5. I think I did say that. The Maid Secret was more like a 3 star, and then Mary Jane was a 5-star read for me. So it's just as a little recap, that's how I rated my books that I read in April. And yeah, that's it. So let me know what you read. Have you read any of these books? Are you reading the Fourth Wing series? Have you read any of the Eddie Flynn books? Are there any that you'd recommend besides 13 and Witness 8? So yeah, I had a okay reading month, I would say. The only thing I didn't like about April was that I didn't read more books. But other than that, it was a good reading month. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. And yeah, let me know what you're reading, because I always want to write stuff down, and my TBR list just continues to grow. But that's okay. It's a good thing. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.